It's match day in the Premier League. Arsenal taking on West Ham, looking to put an end to a bad run that has culminated over the course of the last 2 years. Declan Rice hoping, of course, to be a big part of the end of that run, while hopefully we might see a front four that we've been waiting to witness for a very long time. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is indeed the Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and indeed making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. That would be greatly appreciated. A little note before we go into today's show and to this morning's chat box as well. I know that many of you, of course, are already members of the channel, and I am greatly appreciated for all of you doing so. It's been a little bit trickier if you are indeed an iPhone user, because the iPhone hasn't really supported on iOS the membership kind of tool or the ability for you to sign up. Well, I'm reliably told that that has now changed. So that if you are currently watching this show on an iPhone and you've always wondered, how do I become a member? And it's really frustrating because I can't somehow work out how to do it. Well, if you look below the show, or close down the live chat that's currently live if you're watching live. If not, just go onto the main page of what the show is today, and you'll see the words "join" next to the Gooner Talk with the subscription count next to it, and the little bell notification button as well. If you look at the next bell notification button, it says the word "join," and if you kick, well, you can kick it if you like, I guess. But if you click that little join button, it will take you to a page which helps you then sign up to become a member of the channel. So hopefully that's now showing for people that are indeed using iPhones and that people that were just on Android who signed up previously. So there, you can try that if you want. But other than that, I don't know what the hype button is. Is there a hype button now? Jerome reckons there's a hype button. I don't know what that is. Chat. I don't see any hype buttons. It's not coming up for me. I don't know what it is, but maybe you'll work it out. Good morning to those joining us in the chat box. Of course, Jerome already in with us. Matt G, we've got Rich, we've got Carl, NSW, GZ4, we've got Angela and Maximius, we've got Spearman and Grantley Poos, we've got Mike and Tom, we've got Charles and Glenn. Good morning to you all. And yes, Charles, I did see Semenyo yesterday. The guy is getting better and better. I want to be greedy this morning. I think he'll be a good addition to the team, and he's too clinical in front of God. Look, if we sell one of Martinelli or Trossard in the summer, and we're bringing in Semenyo, I don't think you can have too many complaints about that, can you? I think he needed one more season, in my mind, just to kind of settle in and to join us. But I'm happy to say that Semenyo looks a hell of a player this season already. But it is very early. Things can change. So maybe we'll be saying things differently come the end of the season. But it could be that is indeed who Arsenal end up moving for at the end of the season. Ian, good morning to you, to Eddie, to Neon Gooner, to Cross Junkie. We've got Oluof Love. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anish, Jonathan, who also becomes a brand new member of the channel as well, already getting our new members of the family as well. Bud says, hype is not for the live stream. Okay, so it's nothing to do with the live stream, it seems, but I have no idea what it is. Let's jump to today's stories, shall we? We kick off with big news, because Jurrien Timber looks like he will extend his time with the club beyond his current contract. Of course, he signed for Arsenal in 2023 alongside Declan Rice and Kai Havertz, but we've only really known his quality since 2024 because of that serious injury that he did, of course, suffer. It was reported and broken yesterday by Sami Mokbel of the BBC, reporting that Arsenal are indeed engaging in talks. This has later been confirmed, and I'm happy to say that I certainly am aware of indeed this to be the case too, which is really exciting and good news. And Mikel Arteta also effectively also confirmed this story with us. Simon Collins asking the question, Mikel, you've made a big push on contracts over the past 6 months, tying players down. Jurrien Timber is the latest to be reported to be in talks. Is that a perfect example of what you speak about, where players deserve to be rewarded for their performances on the pitch because his form, particularly in the start of the season, has been so good? And he said, yes, 100%. And especially the players that they want to be with us and want to attach our futures with them. And Jurrien is a really good example of someone that, especially under very difficult circumstances, with a very early injury in his career, with a really difficult injury, the way he's come back, what he's doing for the team. It's phenomenal. And I think he's a really good example of another one that hopefully is going to have a long career with us. Now, before this news, I should point out, before this news about contracts kind of emerged, if you like, I had already written down the question that I was going to ask Mikel, and it was indeed about Jurrien Timber. And so I stuck with it anyway. And it was a very simple question, because the question for Arteta from me yesterday, the first one was, is Jurrien Timber the most underrated player in the Premier League at the moment? And I kind of knew in some ways that he was going to be like, well, I rate him. And that's exactly what he did. But I was curious to ask the question, to which he said, I don't know, because I rate him a lot. So I don't know what people rate him, but hopefully a lot too, because when you're talking about a total player, he has almost every quality you want from a defender. I mean, that is high praise. Every quality possible that you could want in a player, he believes that Jurrien Timber has, which is quite a statement of intent from Mikel. But going further into the press conference and into some of the other key takeaways from yesterday's media setting, he was asked about Piero Hincapié and what the latest is on him. And Arteta said that he will be available after the international break. We've been trying to do everything as fast as possible, but this came too fast. And now we have the international break. And hopefully after that, he will have a couple of sessions with the team and be ready to go. Asked about Gabriel, of course, who came off against Olympiacos, and he says, yes, we'll have to wait and see after training. We've done almost nothing today, so we'll see how everybody is, but we weren't too concerned about him. So, and that concern hasn't changed either, which is also a really positive thing. Now, the England squad came out. Miles Lewis-Skelly, Eberezer, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, all included. But Thomas Tuchel's comments about Miles Lewis-Skelly were somewhat, not concerning, but I think revealing and honest about his situation. And that is that he can't just be in the squad because he's a great member of the group, and that he's going to need to start playing more regularly for Arsenal if he's going to get picked more regularly for England. And he was asked about Miles Lewis-Skelly, and does it make him proud of having these kind of characters with the international managers that want them to be part of their squad? And Arteta said very much, and coming from someone like Thomas, who I know very well, for him to describe Miles in that way, I think it's a credit to the boy, the families, and everybody that has been part of his education, because that's very, very important as well. Miles, as you said, he hasn't played for a lot in the minutes that he wanted, but he's professional in the way that he's engaged with the team and the national team, and this gives you always the possibility to count on him. And the other day we had to play in the Champions League, and I think he had a really good game. Now, there was other questions asked about Miles in the press conference, including from myself. I asked Arteta, and I've kind of been racking my brains a bit about how to kind of word this question. And I alluded to you yesterday morning of the question that I was going to ask, which was, and I'll read you the question of how I worded it. I said, there seems to be a lot of talk at the moment about how many minutes Ethan and Miles get in particular. And over the last 5 years, the squad has obviously developed and got a lot stronger. Have we got to a point now where the minutes that they're getting are probably what's expected for that other player at their age in a team as competitive as Arsenal? So we've kind of talked a lot about, is Ethan getting enough minutes? Is Miles getting enough minutes? And over the last 5 years, we've been very blessed with a lot of Arsenal youngsters, Saka, Nketiah, Nelson, Smith Rowe, Willock, even if you go back far enough, under Arteta's tenure, because Arsenal's squad was not anywhere near as strong as it is now. And so younger players were getting opportunities. Even as recently as the semi-final of the Champions League last season, Arsenal had loads of youngsters on the bench for a Champions League semi-final because of how short we were. But now Arsenal have an incredibly wealthy squad in terms of its quality and depth. And Arteta turned around and said, I don't know. I don't work with expectations. I work with the boys. I work with what the boys can provide in the context that the team is playing in at the moment. And Ethan has played 2 games in the Premier League very early because of an injury to Martin as well. He played in other competitions and he will play more. And with Miles, it's the same. Sometimes it's form, sometimes it's the fact that we want to do certain things in relation to the opposition. And that's it. What I want is that they are in the state that they have been used. And when they are playing, whether it is to start games or a few minutes, they are fully ready. And both of them, they've been really good at that. I still think that this is indeed part and parcel of having such a strong squad in terms of depth. I cannot help but think that it is that. I have to say that it is that. I feel as though that it is that. And I feel as though that we have been so short in the last 5 years in terms of having, relative depth of quality, that we have been, in some ways, overexposed to having young players get minutes at this level. And I think for that reason, we're in a position now, and we've got such a strong squad, that the likes of Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, who are only 18, are playing about what is right for a team like Arsenal at this competitive level. And I don't think it's something that we need to worry about or be concerned as much as some people seemingly are concerned about on this particular topic. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about from the press conference actually comes from the embargoed section of the presser, which released last night. And of course, you'll be able to read in your papers this morning, including the Mirror, of course, as well. And one of the most interesting sections of the press conference was around the injuries suffered by Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Magalhaes. And Arteta was asked by Gary Jacob from the Times about Bukayo Saka and if they had looked to see what the underlying issue was and did they get a chance. And he said, yeah, everything. Believe me, we looked at everything and what's in our sights. What are the things that we can predict and are tweaked and improved? There is a lot of randomness in an injury that we don't know. Sometimes I've been with a player that I wanted to put the finger on something that it was very clear. And then I realized 3 months later that he had a problem with his wife, or he didn't sleep, or his kids for 3 days didn't sleep. And then he got injured. And I say, I've been scratching my head for 1 month trying to do that. And then I found out that that was the real reason, that there are a lot of factors we're trying to control, dominate, and be aware of that we can predict. But unfortunately, this is sport, football, and life. And it's not that easy. And that was really interesting to hear him talk about how aspects off the pitch can have such a considerable impact on a player's capacity to potentially get injured. That if you're not sleeping right, for instance, sleep is a really important factor in the body's recovery. And if you're not sleeping well over long periods of time, that can actually increase the potential for you to get injured, because sleep is what the body does in order to recover. So if you're not sleeping regularly and not very well because of things going on in your personal life, it's amazing that that can actually be a potential contributing factor to a injury of a player. He goes on more specifically about Saka, and he says, well, there were a few things as well. It was very specific actions. We had 3 very similar actions with 3 injuries, 2 groins, 1 hamstring. There is a push when people are trying to accelerate. So to replicate that in training, especially when a player is playing every 3 days, is very, very difficult. But there is a program to try to reproduce things like that, even if they are not going at the highest level, like in a football match. And he was also asked about the example that Ryan Giggs once got players to change their car seats at Manchester United because they are being affected by the way in which the seat was kind of putting you in a certain place, and it was kind of tightening hamstrings and increasing the chance of injuries to hamstrings. And he says, I can look at that. For example, when Gabriel Magalhaes gets injured, a lot of people say he comes from Brazil and does that, but Gabby had to chase 50 minutes backwards chasing against Adama Traore. If instead of Adama Traore, it was Emile Smith-Rowe, with all respect to him, probably he doesn't pull his hamstring. The last time he went 33, 34 kilometers an hour was 6 weeks ago. So he didn't have any exposure there. Can I train that there? I think I can't. But the game can take you to these circumstances. Maybe before you had to do 2 very explosive actions, or maybe none. And that's the moment where the muscle tendon reacts or not. And this was really quite an insightful piece. But it gets better, because Jordan Davis from The Sun says, you say you can't replicate it. Is there a way? Can you try and push them harder to replicate that in game, like from standing starts to full power, for example? And this is where Arteta completely blows wide open my thinking, and I hope some of yours as well, about what we understand about training and what we understand about the difference between training sessions and matches. Because he says, the thing is that you have to replicate all the previous actions. You have to replicate the motion, the stress level, your cortisol levels, your mental state, and the results. It's about replicating the context. I can replicate to go and say, I predict that these shares are going to go up 3%. That's great. But would you put money in real, or would you go online and do it? It's very different. And this for me was the most interesting answer of the whole press conference, because he's absolutely right. And it's something that we as fans, or me as journalists and other journalists as well, I think it's something that we don't think about enough. There's all this stuff about, is there something going on in training? Is there something they're not doing? Is there something that they can do more that they're not looking at? And in that sense, we have to have common sense. You have to have common sense as a fan. You have to think, take a step back for a second and pause and say, at the end of the day, the club invests millions in the best equipment, in the best coaches, in the best training methods, in the best strength and conditioning coaches, in the best sports scientists, in the best equipment and doctors and medical staff and regimes in the world. They have access to the best of pretty much everything. So you have to think about that aspect when you're thinking about injuries, and is it something to do with the club, and are they going to be looking into it? Of course they're going to be looking into if there's anything they can do differently or better to try and mitigate injuries. But Arteta explains this to me perfectly here, because talking about cortisol levels. Now, if you don't know about that, cortisol is basically what release, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm going on really broad terms, and I'm trying to explain this in simple terms, but doing a little bit of research, it's a stress hormone, right? Your cortisol in your body will be releasing when you're under stress. So your body is able to do things or that it wouldn't be able to do. So it's a vital steroid hormone, also known as a stress hormone, produced by your adrenal glands that helps to regulate metabolism, blood pressure, sleep, and the body's stress responses. While essential for health, an imbalance in cortisol levels, either too high or too low, can lead to health problems, making it crucial to maintain healthy levels through the balance. Now, if it's a stress hormone, it's going to be releasing during times of stress. And so therefore, if you're in a moment where you're in a game and your cortisol, of course, levels are high, well, you're not going to know in your body if there is something going on that could potentially be increasing the chance of you being injured. If you're not in an environment where your cortisol levels are in a state where they're in some ways masking, the potential sensitivity that you feel to a potential injury. So like if I'm just walking around and I think, oh, I've got a bit of a tight hamstring, or my hamstring feels a bit tighter than normal, I'm not going to run on that for a little while. I'm going to have to get that stretched out. I might have to go to an osteopath. I might have to get it, worked on before I then go back to training. Well, if you're in a game and you've got a tight hamstring and you're in a stressful situation, those hormones that are released will cover up the sensation, and you won't be as sensitive to the sensation of having a tight hamstring in the same way, because you're in a moment where you're perhaps having to chase a Adama Traore back 50 yards to try and defend, and then ultimately your hamstring gets injured. So it's really interesting. I know I spent a lot of time on this bit this morning, but I think I wanted to because I thought it was one of the most interesting answers in a press conference Arteta was given. And I think it really spoke to the level of detail that they think about when it comes to injuries. This is not a man who doesn't understand injuries or isn't thinking about all the potential aspects and risk factors when it comes to injuries. And so for anybody that is thinking about, well, they clearly need to be doing more stuff around injuries and need to be looking into things, I really hope that these answers that were given in this press conference gave you the confidence that, they are actually looking at it in as much detail as feasibly possible. Yeah, I mean, adrenaline's probably going to have a good example, right? Like adrenaline is another hormone, right, that's going to give you the ability to kind of mask pain in certain situations and for your body to do things it wouldn't normally be able to do in certain situations because you would feel the pain or the sensitivity in those actions. So yeah, that for me is really, really key in understanding as much as possible really about this situation. Right, we go to part 2 now and a quick look today ahead of the game against West Ham. Right, this is indeed part 2 of our Matchday News Show, which of course means it is our mini preview ahead of the game against West Ham. So, my team for today's game: David Raya in goal, Jurrien Timber at right back, Calafiori at left back, Saliba and Mosquera in the middle. I don't think we need to risk Gabriel in this game. You've got a player as good as Mosquera. You don't need to risk Gabriel. So, for me, Mosquera is the man for me that goes into that left centre-half slot. You could easily do Saliba there if you want, swap them around, but this is the two that played and started in the game against Port Vale. Mosquera started on the left-hand side, Saliba started on the right, so I don't see any reason why we don't have to go with Mosquera and we don't have to risk Gabriel. Zubimendi at 6, Rice, of course, in the midfield with Ødegaard, and then a front three of Saka, Gyökeres, and Eze. Get your scoreline predictions into the chat box now. Let us know what you think the scoreline is going to be. But for me, this is the front four I want to see. I want to see more of this. Ødegaard, Saka, Gyökeres, and Eze in the team together. This is what I want to see with Rice, of course, there as well. We haven't seen that 5. We haven't seen Rice, Ødegaard, Saka, Gyökeres, and Eze, I don't think, yet. We saw Marino, Ødegaard, Saka, Gyökeres, and Eze against Nottingham Forest. We didn't see Rice in that midfield 5, or that front 5, if you like. So I want to see this. I think Rice is going to play because he obviously didn't start the game against Olympiacos and was rested. So I imagine that we're not going to be dissuaded from thinking that Rice is going to start this game. Arasilki says 3-0 to the Arsenal. Mohamed says 4-0. Jerome says 3-0. So does Manny. Claire's going for a 2-0 win. Our second goal coming in the 98th minute. Goals from Timber and Rice direct from a corner. George 5-0 win. Ian says 3. Ames says 4-0. Steve's going for a 3-1. Barry says 3-0. Loss going for a 4-1. Kirill going for 6-1. Lucas says 2-0. Dorin says 2-0 as well. Brendan says 3-0. Maximius says 2-0. Akira says 5-0. Spearmint also says 5-0. Mad. Some really crazy scorelines here, and clearly you're all very confident about Arsenal getting a result. Just like I'm confident about NordVPN. I'm very confident about Nord because I know that it will give you the safety and security that you need, while indeed you are surfing the net, looking, of course, at whatever it is you may be looking at. But you want to do it with the peace of mind that no one else is looking at your data while perhaps you're using a public Wi-Fi service. So you need to go to nordvpn.com/Gooner to get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan. You can change your geodigital location seamlessly with any of the supported territories, of course, on Nord. All terms and conditions can be looked at on the website, but it is indeed a 1 or a 2 year plan with 4 months extra phone free on top of that. If you're not happy with the deal for whatever reason, you get a 30-day money guarantee on top of that too. Who can say any fairer than that? Right, I'm going to throw out some more of your scorelines while we go to parts 3, your questions and more, right after this. Right, this is part 3 of today's show, where we're going to be tackling some more of your questions and thoughts on today's game. So if you've got a question, now is the time to do it. Right, I'm quickly going to jump into our starred comments, which of course always get starred whenever there's some new comments and super chats to discuss. There's a lot of new members in the chat box today, as I said before. Perhaps you joined us a little bit late. If you are an iPhone user and you have always wondered how you become a member of the channel, where YouTube's app now, you may need to update the app, but the app now on iOS should support YouTube memberships now. So if you look to the right hand side of where it says the Gooner Talk, you might need to close down the live chat. To do that, click the little X in the top right hand corner and you click join. Well, if you click that join button, it takes you to the memberships page where you can access any of our memberships and the levels, of course, that are available. If you would like to join the channel and join our Discord server, all you need to do... That's weird. The prices have changed. I've never noticed that before. Since when did that happen? Have YouTube... I need to do a quick Google. YouTube inflate membership prices. I didn't know they'd done that. No. YouTube raises monthly subscription fees. No. YouTube member. Okay. The reason why I set, and I don't know, maybe there's like a premium that I never was aware of, because I set the prices, of course, years ago when we started this membership. But it used to be 99p, 2 quid, 3 quid, and 5 quid. But now for some reason it's 150, 3 quid, 4 quid, and 6 quid. I didn't know that. Has that always been like that? Apple ups prices. Yeah, Apple charges more. Is it to do with Apple? Oh, so you have to do it on app. So if you're an iOS user, it's different. Okay. Maybe it's just a premium because it's on the Apple device. Okay. I didn't know that. So that's news to me. I didn't know that. So, I mean, I don't know if you do it on your... You pay more with Apple, apparently. I don't know if you can get around that. Okay, it's 99 on PC. Okay, so if you use your PC, it's slightly cheaper, but it's up to you. If you want to sign up through your iPhone, you can do it that way. But yeah, if you want to be in our Discord server, you get access to our Discord server by either being a TGT expert member or a TGT ambassador. If you just want to support the channel, you can do so by becoming just a TGT member or a TGT Plus member, which is a little bit more. But yeah, we used to do an extra pod, but we don't do that anymore. So I need to get rid of that, really. But we don't do the LTA extra pod was like from 5 years ago. We don't do that anymore. So I need to update these a bit. But yeah, if you are on iPhone, you can now sign up as a member. If you're listening to this on catch up on audio platforms, of course, that it's irrelevant to you. But yeah, anyway, James, thank you for becoming a member on the channel. Same with Just Saying, appreciate you. Dan's all about Arsenal 1886. Thank you so much as well to you, and Glyn as well, on top of Jonathan, all of you. Glyn Evans and Jonathan also joining as a member. Kirill's gifted 5 memberships as well to the channel, and it's also his birthday, which is a great day to celebrate on a match day, of course, as well. Kirill, happy birthday to you. I hope indeed that you have a fantastic day, and I hope you enjoy yourself, and I hope you're all doing well as well. Right, let's get your questions going. Paul says, is Dowman playing enough football at the moment, as he's with the first team and is frequently benched? He's not playing in the under-21s and under-18s. Well, it's a question that I have asked myself on here. It's a question, and I've asked Arteta this question as well. I think I asked him the other week about Dowman. Let me see if I can find the press conference where I asked that very question. It might take me a second. But yeah, I definitely asked about Max in one of these questions about minutes. Let me see if I can find where it was. It might take me a little while, so maybe I'll discuss some others while I'm searching for it. Let's tackle another question first while I try and find it. Lucas says, I'd love to see Eza left, Odegaard right with Zubi and Rice in the 6 as we are at home, Martinelli on the left. Do you think that could happen? Do I think it could happen. And it's something that we have talked about before. And maybe Zubimendi gets a bit of a rest because Declan Rice, of course, didn't play. So maybe it's a case that we don't see him play in that position. And we see him play with kind of a front 5 with a number 6 instead, with like Martinelli on the left. And as you say, Eza and Martinelli. It's definitely something that I would like to see. I really would quite like to see that happen. And maybe a game against West Ham is the right game to do it in. Maybe. Anyway, I found the question. So I said to Arteta a couple of weeks ago, I said, just to ask you a quick one on Max Dowman, because you're in a unique position as a manager and as a coach, developing a player of such a young age. There's this perception that players of that age need to be playing so regularly to build up that development. And when you progress into the senior team at such a young age, and you might necessarily be on the bench and not therefore exposed to as many minutes as a player of that age usually would, how do you cope and find the balance for a player of that level? And he says, well, learning from him, probably. First of all, preparing and having a very good understanding of his new situation, all the things that are different in his life. So we need to change his times. We need to change his education, probably his allocation of where he is with his family. His diet is different. His sleep patterns become different. The training load is different. The amount of information, pressure, exposure is different. So we have to manage a lot of factors. Into that, a lot of factors you add, a lot of minutes with very different teams. We need to be cautious and very careful. And that's what we're trying to do in the best possible way, to find that balance, to keep Max as connected as possible with the first team, because he's undoubtedly a player that can help the first team. But that's why we need to get the right mixture of minutes, like he did the other day with the under-21s and with England. So have that exposure. When he needs to play with us, he's ready to do that. And I thought that was a really interesting answer at the time as well about Dowman, because it is going to be very difficult to manage the minutes of a player so young, who at that age would usually be playing a lot of youth football, but is now on the bench for the senior team and isn't being as exposed to as many minutes as perhaps they usually would. But is obviously the minutes they are getting are more valuable than the minutes that they would be getting at that age for the youth team. So it is a very interesting environment. Ashin, thank you also to you becoming a brand new member on the channel. Really appreciate your kind support of TGT, and welcome to the family. Zoom, yeah, sure you asked about Dowman. I did, and there you go. We've got the answer. Paul says, if you have Dowman on the bench, you've got to play him, even occasionally. What's he learning sitting on the bench? A lot, Paul. He's learning a lot being on the bench. Of course, he's involved in training sessions, involved in the games, involved in the pre-match environment. He's obviously warming up with the players. He's doing the pre-match preparation with the players, which in itself are a bit of a training session. You have to trust, Paul, that they know more than us. You have to trust that they know more about what to do than you and me do. And you have to defer it to them. So the answer to your question is already there with Arteta, of course. But, they know more than us about how to manage these players. And Claire says, Jack Wilshere was saying yesterday how good Max's dad is at challenging him and keeping him grounded. Well, that's really good to hear. John says, are there not enough good managers in the Premier League? So many teams are underperforming that the top six are not being challenged enough. So it's easier for one of them to win the title than it should be. I don't know if that's necessarily true, John. I mean, I know we need to do a Premier League roundup anyway, so there's probably a good time to do that. If we have a quick look at the table right now, Bournemouth have moved into second place. They've played a game more than us, of course, so currently sitting on 14 points. Iraola's a fantastic manager with Bournemouth, been great. In fourth place is Crystal Palace under Oliver Glasner, who's doing a great job there as well. I mean, annoyingly, Thomas Frank has been a pretty decent appointment for Spurs as well. And then you got Regis Labrise, of course, at Sunderland, who currently sees them sitting in sixth place in the table above Manchester City right now, and above Chelsea, of course. David Moyes is still doing a decent job, I think, at Everton this season. You've got Fabian Hürzeler, of course, at Brighton. Brighton are always a competitive side. They've already beaten Manchester City. Marco Silva at Fulham, also done a decent job with Fulham. No, they lost, of course, in their game against Bournemouth, but still, they're a decent team. They've nicked points off big teams over the last couple of seasons, including Arsenal, who they played next. Leeds United, Daniel Farke, of course, is so far at the moment, they are out of the relegation zone, which is obviously the mission of them this season. I mean, Brentford are in a very interesting scenario because obviously after losing Thomas Frank and being in the situation that they're in with Keith Andrews as their manager, it's tricky, I think, for Brentford this season, and their target will be survival, especially after losing in Burmo and Norgard and other players as well. Wissa also having left. Man United are terrible. Newcastle, Eddie Howe, good manager. We all know that. Unai Emery's a good coach, but I think he's perhaps coming to the end of his running his magic, if you like, with Villa. Ange Postecoglou is terrible, and I expect if they keep Ange Postecoglou, Nottingham Forest will be relegated. And Scott Parker with Burnley. Again, Burnley, it's difficult to see them staying up. And Nuno Espirito Santo is a good manager, and West Ham, I think, have made a good decision in appointing him. And it wouldn't be surprising at all to see West Ham, of course, survive and Nottingham go down if indeed those managers stay in their current positions. And then Vitor Pereira at Wolves. Wolves are probably the worst team in the league at the moment. It's not surprising that they haven't won a single game this season. And Vitor Pereira is probably in a lot of danger for that reason. And you might see Sean Dyche in charge of that club come the end of the campaign. But I don't think you're necessarily right, John, in that assessment of the Premier League right now. I think there's actually a lot of competitive teams in the Premier League at the moment. But yes, let's have a quick look at today's games, just so you're aware of what's happening. In today's early kickoff, Leeds United, 12:30, host Spurs. 3 o'clock kickoff today involved 3 of the big 6. Arsenal taking on West Ham. Manchester United taking on Sunderland. Oh, sorry, only 2 of the big 6. But the 5:30 kickoff is the big one of the weekend for most neutrals. Chelsea hosting Liverpool. Arsenal can go top of the table with their win over West Ham. They can stay there if Liverpool fail to win their game against Chelsea. That is the potential that Arsenal have for this game. Aston Villa are hosting Burnley tomorrow in 2 o'clock kickoffs. There's 4 of those. Everton against Crystal Palace, Newcastle against Nottingham Forest, and Wolves against Brighton. And then the 4:30 kickoff is Brentford hosting Manchester City. So as I say, Arsenal could be top of the league come the end of the day. They certainly will be top of the league at 5 o'clock if they've managed to beat West Ham before that Chelsea-Liverpool fixture. Liverpool, of course, have now lost back-to-back games against Crystal Palace and Galatasaray and do not look in a good state at all. Emma Tomo, thank you so much to you as well for joining as a member and very much for appreciating your support here. And welcome to the TGT family. Paul says, I predicted that Ange will be gone long before Christmas. Keep up the good work, Ange, indeed. Sally says, people seem obsessed with trophies. I feel differently. Can I ask you, would you prefer 5 trophyless seasons, but we finish second, or we win the Europa and the FA Cup, but finish 17th for 5 seasons? Oh my God, that's a horrible question. Like from now, like because in either of those scenarios, I think Arteta's gone. In either of those situations, Arteta's gone. Like neither of those 5-year periods can be defined as success for this Arsenal team. I don't know if I can even answer that question. A, because it's just so unrealistic. Like, I don't think Arsenal will go trophyless and finish second for the next 5 seasons. I think that's unrealistic. But equally, I think it's unrealistic that we would regress so much that we finished 17th for 5 seasons and won those 2 cups. It's an impossible question, Sally. I think the question you first ask about the obsession about trophies, I think there's a genuine conversation to be had around that aspect of your question. But the example that's provided, it's just so wacky that I don't think I can even answer that, because it's both of those scenarios are just flat out failures. Both of them are failures. Like, the trophies are almost irrelevant in those situations because if you're finishing 17th for 5 seasons in a row, that's just chaos, isn't it? Well, I think all of those are joyless in some ways. You know, the monotony of second place for another 5 seasons. I think a better way to ask that question is more so, is there an obsession with trophies to the point in which we forget the value of being competitive? That's the better way, I think, to ask the question, and to which I would say, yes, I do think that is the case, and we talk about that a lot. But it's if you are a football fan purely thinking that trophies is the only thing that matters, I can never really vibe with that. That's not how I view football, because football is a sport, so no one's entitled to anything. I want to. You're in a very privileged position as a fan to support a team that, as I use this example all the time, and I'm sorry for boring you with it, but you're very privileged as a fan of a club who goes into every season being in with a chance of being a genuine contender for any of the competitions that it enters. It's a very privileged position to be in as a fan of a club like Arsenal at the moment. It just is. But no, football is not just about trophies. It is for some people, and I empathise with their viewpoint. I don't agree with it. But for me, Arsenal and what they're doing is all about trying to win trophies. And that's their mission. That's their goal. That's their aim. And that's what they should be doing. Everything in their power to try and win those trophies. And if they are in a position where they are doing that, then I am happy to a degree. But in your example, if we went 5 years without winning a trophy from now, that is nothing short of a failure based upon what we know has happened in terms of investment, in terms of the quality of the squad, the depth of the squad, the quality of the manager. Something must have gone severely wrong. And you could argue as severely wrong, potentially, as if you fall away and only pick up those 2 trophies, but you've picked up trophies, but you finished 17th. Like, I just don't think, Sally, the question is viable. But I get the essence of the question. I just don't think it's viable for me. Tavo says, greetings from Chicago. Those that are in Chicago this weekend, of course, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic time at Gooner Palooza. If you're unaware, and maybe you're in Chicago and you're unaware of what Gooner Palooza is, make sure you find out what it is. Do some Googling. Gooner Palooza. You can check out, of course, all the guys doing their work, great work at the Globe pub in Chicago, where they watch Arsenal games every single week. They're brilliant. I've been there myself. It's an amazing atmosphere, amazing people. Dilly and Jim and all the others that help out, of course, are great, great, great people. So go and check that out if you are happening to be in Chicago or just nearby over the course of this weekend. Please go and check it out. Tavo says, would you rather Arsenal be part of a multi-club system or go without winning a major trophy for the next 5? Again, I don't really know, Tavo, the relevance of the question in a way, because I've always said that Arsenal probably should be part of a multi-club system. I think Arsenal are missing a trick at the moment, not having a multi-club model. I think it leaves us in a vulnerable state of falling behind, because at the moment, UEFA and the governing bodies are, in essence, kind of helping multi-club models to exist in a way they want them to exist. They never put things in place to stop them from existing. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether or not, the multi-club system is is a little bit of a tricky one. And I'm glad that you weren't aware about, in a way, I'm glad you weren't aware of Gunapalooza, Tavo, because it means that now maybe you get to experience something pretty cool this weekend. But you have to get up early, of course, to go to the game later on today, tomorrow for you, I guess, if you're still sleeping, up at a ridiculous hour in the morning. But yeah, go and check it out. Gunapalooza at the Globe in Chicago. Make sure you check it out. Jared Carver, I hope, as well, and John, all over there. And I know that a lot of them are visiting over from the States in November for Palace. Really, is it November or is it October, the Palace game? I think it's October, actually, now I think about it. But that's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing them. Yeah, 26th of October, the Palace game at home. That should be a great, fun weekend. Looking forward to that very much so. Gunadult says, I'll be at the Palooza in November, hopefully, with the Spurs game as well. Is there multiple Paloozas? I didn't know there was more than one. Cass says, I definitely want this current team to win a major trophy, as I want the team to shut up most of their critics. Your Keys, your Nevilles, your Carragers, your Cundys, your Haras, and Burleys. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Cass. I empathise with you for sure. George says, Warzone. No, just media sensationalism. I don't know what this is referring to, George. I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Are we talking about Arsenal? I hope so. So Nicholas says, Tom, I'm going to an Arsenal bar in New York today for the match. Should I wear my blue O2 Henry shirt or my red O2 Vieira shirt? Well, we're playing at home, so I would recommend the home shirt. But I love the away shirt. But yeah, I absolutely go for the home shirt always, because if we're playing an away game, I'd get it. But we're playing at home, hence why, you know, there is reason behind the shirts that I wear. There is always a reason. Palooza is a large festival event as well. So apparently there's one going on somewhere else as well today, which is great. I love seeing the stuff abroad when fans from abroad kind of congregate in one place to watch the game. They're so passionate. They love the club so much. They're so dedicated. They're more dedicated in some ways than people who live around the corner from the Emirates. So it's the dedication they show is unrivaled to me, and it's just no wonder that there is extra kind of attention given at times to them. Or wear both shirts, says Paul. One in each half. There you go. There's your answer to the question. You can absolutely do both. And Spearman says Vancouver needs to step up their Palooza. Vancouver needs to step up their general game. I didn't enjoy Vancouver when I was there. It was not. That's a city that needs a lot improved to it, in my opinion. I say that coming from London, of course, which isn't exactly the best either, but certainly it needs to. Right. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. Appreciate your time. I can feel the coughs coming, so I'm going to wrap things up there. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 o'clock, rounding up the thoughts on today's game against West Ham. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate your time. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal. Match day vlog will be up tomorrow morning as well on the Instagram page, so make sure you're following me over there at Tom Canton Media. See you soon.